Welcome to tonight's lesson on leadership. We are on lesson number 2. So if you have your notebook, if you have your notes pulled up on your iPad or your electronic device, I hope you guys are ready because we are about to put it on you tonight. Curtis?
You ready?
I'm ready.
So tonight we're going to talk about leadership, as Keena so eloquently mentioned. Leadership is one of those things that, last week we talked about the entrepreneurial spirit, but leadership is just one of those areas in which if you do not know how to lead effectively, a lot of the things we're going to teach over this series, you will just be inadequate in actually doing some of that. So we endeavor to give you a great foundation in what leadership is, probably what it's not. We have a lot of information to cover. Keena asked me, we're going to get through all of this. So if we do not get through it all tonight, we will continue on leadership next week. Hopefully we'll get through, but if not, we will not slight you in the information that we prepared. And we will continue the series because we believe this information is absolutely vital. So as always, we always start with our foundational scriptures. This was delegating. And Moses was becoming overwhelmed. And I used this passage, it was a little long, I recognize that, but I wanted you guys to get the context of what was being said here. Moses could have been easily overwhelmed, so Moses had to get help. As entrepreneurs, we oftentimes find ourselves in situations where when we first start out, we the chief bottle washer, we taking out the garbage, we doing all the cleaning, we doing the administrative tasks. But like in this passage, Moses' father-in-law told him, if you continue doing this work, and it was the work that Moses had, but let's make a parallel. If you continue doing all the things in your business, you're going to wear yourself out. And you're not going to be as effective as you should be. So our role and responsibility as entrepreneurs is to delegate and to lead. So tonight we're going to talk about leadership. So a Chinese proverb that I really, really like says, he who leads, but no one is following him, he's only taking a walk. So if you call yourself leading and there's no one else following you,
right?
The Chinese say you have deceived yourself. So the exact quote was, he who thinks he leads but has not followers is only taking a walk. That was the word for word translation of what that proverb meant. So leadership by definition is influence. I didn't go and pull Webster today to give you this big glorious definition of what leadership is. But leadership in its truest sense is nothing more than influence. And influence is gained a person at a time. We're going to pull up a couple charts tonight. We're going to show you guys, if we get there in time, the different tiers of leadership. So you're going to have a working definition whenever this module's done, whether it's 1 session or 2 sessions. You're going to have a working definition of what leadership is and how it applies to your specific situation. Leadership is earned. So oftentimes, and let's go back to the corporate world. So most of you guys, before you became entrepreneurs, had something you did. Either you were part of another organization, you saw you were in some type of environment, some type of organizational or corporate structure. And I recognize that corporations vary in terms of the complexity and the tiers of organizational structure and like. But you always seen that new manager who came in, and sometimes the new manager was being trained by someone who was senior to them. And that new manager sometimes falsely assumed that you had to respect him because of his position. I'm reminded of that South Park example. It says, respect my authority. but authority is granted. It's not just something that people willingly give you. And if you do get them to follow you just based on your title, it's not going to be sustainable. Right. So you have to garner leadership one individual at a time and recognize you can be at different layers of authority granted or received. Let me say it this way. You could be at different authority levels with different people. So one person, they may just follow you just because they're following you because the boss said this person is in charge. Mm-hmm. Another person can be following you because of what your heart, they trust you. There's this give and take mutual benefit being given between each other as a worker or as an employer, supervisor, employee relationship. And it's going to be the same thing in your business. everyone who comes to work for you initially comes to work for you for a check. If there was no check, they wouldn't be there. But them following you has to get beyond them just following you because your name's on the building or you're the designated manager or executive in charge. But that has to be earned and granted over time. And this is how you actually create a cult-like following. You know, you look at those stories like Jim Jones. You know, we've all heard of the Jim Jones. Jim Jones wasn't paying these people. These people willingly drunk the Kool-Aid.
Right.
So as leaders, we have to find out, not that we're trying to get anybody to do anything illegal or more unethical, but can you get people to willingly follow you without feeling coerced? And that's what Jim Jones did. Matter of fact, a lot of these psychopaths, a lot of these cult leaders have great leadership ability. And these people willingly follow you. I'm on the side. There's a running joke going on in our house right now. I got into the show called Ruthless
by Tyler
Perry. And you have these folks following the highest. And so folks are following the highest because of the leadership quality the highest got. These people are willing to lay their lives down for the highest.
Right.
Now, some of the principles he espouses, you know, like women are not empowered. They don't have any authority under his leadership. The men, there's a lot going on. I don't want to get into the show on here, but there's a lot going on. But my point is that this gentleman got these people to abandon their current lifestyles and follow his way without coercion.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the older women, she says, I would lay my life down for you. Do you have folks in your organization that no matter what you ask them to do, even though sometimes the things that we ask our subordinates to do, and I don't really like that term, but I have to make sure I delineate between who's in charge and who's following. Let me say this, and just because you're the leader, leadership can happen within any level of the organization. It's not always the person who's leading the organization who's the leader. Sometimes leadership can be at various levels of the organization. Now, we're going to show this in the chart, so just bear with us. Leadership must be earned, and a true leader touches your heart before they ever ask you for what's in your hand. Mm-hmm. Straight up. And what's happening is you're creating a level of trust. Now, we don't create trust to try to take advantage and manipulate people. You need to really care. And people can sense when you really genuinely care about them and their career trajectory. And when folks feel like you're genuinely caring, when you make a mistake, people are willing, it's like we're going to charge it to his head and not to his heart. So folks can understand when you're truly being generous.
Absolutely. And I can still say that I can relate to that so clearly to this day. I'm no longer a salon owner, but all the young ladies that worked in my salon with me, they still respect me as their leader to this day. Like that's still happening right now. I could call them at any given moment and say, hey, I'm doing something, you know, could you be a part of it? And they're willing to walk right back in that same mode, mm-hmm. just like when, you know, they worked in my salon under my leadership. But I always, in those moments, I always made sure that I was an inclusive leader. And I always made sure that I found everyone's strong point mm-hmm. and their weaknesses so that I could either pair them, create a plan of action to lead them in the direction that they were trying to go in, mm-hmm. and make sure that they were, as a leader myself, that I could step back and allow them to take some leadership positions in certain areas of my organization.
Wow. You know, being that we talked about that, there was a slide that I was going to wait, but I'm going to show it now. So this is going to be more of an interactive session, y'all. I'm going to show it now because I think it goes to the essence of what Keena is talking to.
Share screen.
So let me do a share screen. So I'm going to show you my PowerPoint deck.
I love it. I love this chart. I love this chart.
So leadership has 5 primary tiers. These are the 5 we picked. There might be some more, but there are 5 primary tiers. And the first tier would be positional leadership. Now, this is where people follow you because they have to. This is This is your manager at said organization that you worked for in the past, or in your current organization. People are following you just because of your title.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if your name's on the building, they following you because you're the owner. But see, oftentimes entrepreneurs mistakenly believe that just the fact that they're an entrepreneur alone makes them a great leader, which is not true. But if folks are following you, they're following you from a positional, number one on this chart, basis. People follow you because they have to. Mm-hmm. This is the lowest level of leadership. Now, everyone starts at level one. It comes into your organization, or when you get a new title, everyone starts at the bottom. They start at positional because of the right to follow.
You got to build that up.
You have to build that up. But the next step you want to go to, you start at positional or position, which is, these are your rights. This is my job title says, or someone has granted me with the right to lead other people. That means I'm effective, but that people are following me because they have to. Lowest form. The second level of leadership we should be going to is permission-based leadership. And this is relationship-based. So people follow you because they want to. I just genuinely like King, so I follow King, or vice versa. So started at position, you got to know the person, and now because of relationship, I'm following you. It's not just because you're the owner, but I genuinely like Raina, or I genuinely like Donna, or I genuinely like Kurt. So I'm following them because we have built relationship. They allowed me to see their heart, and I was able to really understand they really had my best interest at heart. And this is why, as leaders, our job is to serve the people. As we serve, people willingly serve for service back. So it's this, it's a Latin word called quid pro quo, this for that. So I extend myself, and in return, people extend themselves back to me. It's just common laws of nature. Now, there might be some exceptions to that, because some people are not as trusting. So some folks, you have to work a little harder to get their trust, because remember, trust is earned. Leadership is nothing but influence. So, but we get to a point where we develop a relationship. So it's moved past the fact that I'm the owner, or I'm the manager, or I'm the supervisor, or whatever my title is. And now people are following me based on relationship. They have given me, they have granted their, they have extended themselves to follow me based on relationship. Number three, and this is the one, if you start getting to number three, you're really starting to harness your ability as a leader.
Yes.
They follow you because of results. So people follow you because of what you've done for the organization. You are the rainmaker if you're in sales. So folks want to be on your team because you're the number one salesperson. Or you have you might have strong technical expertise in the area, and other people are now following you based on that technical expertise. Whether it's IT, whether it's cosmetology, you do something better than everyone else. And because of that, it's worthy of me following you. So that's production based. So the people are following you because you get results. I had a gentleman, I was at one of the customer bases that I support, and I had one of the managers come in my office, and he cursed. I'm not going to curse. He says, people follow. He says, I get stuff done. I get stuff done. Now, he was a manager, but his moniker that he wore on his sleeve was, I get results.
Right.
And so people followed him. Now, whether his results were good or not, I'm not the judge of that, but in his own mind, he was the king because I get stuff done. Number four. Now, you people follow you because of your reproduction ability. You are a people developer. You take you and you reduplicate you. And then as an entrepreneur,
yes,
this is what we absolutely have to do. Because this is the only way we're going to relieve ourselves of all of those jobs that we have as entrepreneurs, as the accounting executive, as the cash management manager, as the bookkeeper, as the bottle washer, as the, if you're in a bakery, the chief baker. We have to start reproducing portions of ourselves and other people based on our ability to look into them and see where their strengths and weaknesses lie, and place them in a position where they're able to maximize their strengths and minimize their weaknesses. Mm-hmm. So we are now developing people. So people follow you for what you've done for them. I want to, at the end of the day, especially if you're the owner, your employees, and even if you're an executive manager, if you're not quite in the entrepreneurship role, but you may be working for somebody, people should be looking up to the folks that's in charge. So they should want to be like you. Now, I've seen the opposite too. When you've been in organizations, that's the least likely person that you want to be. But it should be that folks want to like, wow, this person rose to this level of an organization, or this person took the risk. I see semblances of that in myself. So it should be fairly, I ain't gonna say it's easy because it's not easy, but you are in a better position to reproduce yourself. So it's one of the things I really pride Kina on. Kina, as you guys know, shut her shop down years ago, but she reproduced little Kinas. Now, and it's only one Kina, so there's never ever going to be another Kina. But she produced other people who saw what she did, took the risk, started their own full service salons, and of having varying degrees of success based on the example she set. Remember, just like our kids, people don't do what we say, they do what we do. And then last but not least, and I know Kina has a lot she can add here because she has lived this. Pinnacle. This is the highest. It may take a whole lifetime for you to get here. People just respect who you are. I respect who you are and what you represent. So that's why I follow you. This is beyond position. I'm not following you because of your title. This is beyond relationship, although more than likely, you may or may not, depending on how big the organization is, you may or may not have touched me directly. This is beyond results, because for you to be at this level, that means that you've already done something worth following. And then at people development, more than likely, especially if you're at the top of the organization. In this example, let's think about you started from the bottom and you worked your way up. And that could even be an entrepreneur. You started, it's just you laid the foundation, you took the risk, you heard God, you took an idea, you gambled all your money. That's really what it was, as a risk. I took this gamble. I believe I heard God, and let me move forward on what I believe God told me, overcoming obstacles and setbacks and difficulties along the way. And now I've gotten to this grand posture in my organization. So now people are following me for who I am and what I represent. And especially as your organization grows, you may not get to know every individual person who works for your company. God gonna bless some of y'all. Some of y'all may have hundreds of employees. You may not know all 100 of them, but they gonna know you, and they gonna hear the stories about you. Man, I was her third hire, or I was his fourth hire. And I remember when we had this and that and that. And so now these legends start about you, and now people are respecting who you are and represent, because they heard about what happened in 2013, or they heard about what happened in 2020 when you were facing some seemingly insurmountable obstacles and you overcame.
Right.
And so the respect, now people come to the organization say, matter of fact, I was working with the company because I was an entrepreneur, but there was a particular manager that left the Army. He was an Army, I don't know if he was a major or a colonel, but he left, went into government contracting service. And do you know there were people who'd heard of him when he was in the Army as a very high-ranking officer? And when he went to a specific company, do you know people followed him? Didn't even have a relationship with him, but just knew what he brought to the table and said, I want to work for him. And so when they was unable to work for him when they were in the military, but when they got out, he found a way to align himself to that individual.
Absolutely. And I can tell you, as you climb these ladders as a leader, and you are pushing out more people that represent who you are, represent your brand, right. Represent, your company or your business, and they're able to now go out and follow their dreams and become what they want to be in business. Mm-hmm. When people look back on that and they say, I remember when she used to work so-and-so. I remember when I saw her at so-and-so, because before, truth be told, I became a salon owner. People remembered me from working someone else's job as a leader in Northwoods Mall in Charleston, South Carolina, at Foot Locker with that striped shirt on and those black pants. I was a manager for that organization, and I built clientele based on my leadership and management capabilities in someone else's establishment, so that it really prepared me for becoming a business owner. Because then when people would look back and say, I remember, and now to see you where you are today, I see those same qualities that I saw back then. Wow. So I was able to now take all of that information and just make it expand, make it go into the areas that I wanted to go into. in my business, and I was able to lead people in my organization in the way that I needed them to go in, and they also had to see the vision. So as they saw the vision and they saw me working the plan and they saw me working the vision and they saw me training them, you know, they just came under really quickly, and it was an easy way to follow leadership. And I also allowed people to be themselves, and I didn't try to control them as a leader. So again, recognizing the strengths and weaknesses, through that, I was able to just build this respect within the organization and allow people to flourish and be who they were supposed to be in my organization. And then from there, I was able to just pull on that and make my business better. You know, so I think a lot of times in these positions as leaders, we got to see what is within the person that I can pull on to make my organization better. And in the same process, create their, make them become leaders as well. Like use that same information and turn them into leaders. So then when they go out and do their own thing, you know, they've also developed in these areas.
Right. Now, we're going to deviate from my script a little bit.
Okay.
So now that we understand the 5, and there might be more, but these are the 5 that we follow. Now that we kind of have an understanding of the 5 different levels of leadership development, let's talk about the 6 different leadership styles.
Ooh, yes.
Okay, so we're going to go to our next slide.
I love it.
So there are 6 primary leadership styles.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we even get into this, and by the way, this is probably one of Keenan and I's favorite subjects to teach together, which is leadership. None of these styles you should be in all the time.
Right.
Meaning you need to learn how to stick and move,
mm-hmm.
oscillate, whatever term you want to use. You need to be able to flow in and out of these styles based on the situation that's happening within the organization. So we're going to go through these one by one, and then we're going to give you an example of how you would use this. So number 1 would be commanding. This demands immediate compliance. And so I like this chart here that we put up. Matter of fact, this came from a guy named Daniel Goleman. Daniel Goleman wrote a bunch of books about emotional and social intelligence, basically how to lead. Great read. If you got some time, great lead. This is just one of many things in that book. But you got commanding. This is where you demand immediate compliance. Do what I tell you to do. Now, this is not something you want to use all the time. Because if you use any one of these styles all the time, you will burn out your workforce. And the intended effect, you won't get anymore. So you drive to achieve initiative and self-control. Let me kind of clarify. So in this chart, it is a 6 by 5. So the first one is the leader's modus operandi. So, you know, kind of what is the goal of using it, the style. And so we're going to give you some phrases. This is all from the chart. Some phrases that denote that this is the type of leadership style that you're evoking. The third one is the emotional intelligence, which is your ability to perceive the emotional or social state of a person. It doesn't have to be a subordinate. This could be other managers or leaders in your organization. So being able to kind of read where they are emotionally and being able to navigate that. The fourth thing is when the style works best. And then last but not least, it's the overall impact. Now, as we go through these, one of the things you're going to see is some of these have a positive and a negative response. And that's not the problem. The problem is knowing when to properly evoke the style. So as I continue down the commanding approach, it's a drive to achieve initiative and self-control. So you got to take control of a situation. Mm-hmm. You use this in a crisis to kickstart a turnaround or with the problem employee. So if you got a problem employee, that is not the time, especially if you've already had to counsel this employee a few times. That is not the time to be maybe understanding. Maybe the first time they mess up, you might be understanding, but if we went through this maybe 6 times, this is not the time to have this problem. I mean, not the time to be super passive. You got to take control of a situation and hopefully try to correct what could be a potentially damaging problem again and again. So next one, visionary. Mobilize people toward a vision. As entrepreneurs, we all should have times in our organizations where we cast a vision.
Right.
That's when you're telling people, come with me, or see what I see. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And you're casting vision for your workforce. The third thing, self-confidence. This evokes self-confidence, empathy, understanding, and it's a change catalyst. So change catalyst is a big fancy way of saying you're going to be a change agent. You're trying to create some shift, some repentant. I use repentant because from church, but some change from one state to another. Mm-hmm. When to use style? When changes require a new vision, or when clear direction is needed. And this can be mostly positive, but you can't, as an entrepreneur, that's why I said mostly positive, because you can't just stay in a state where you're just vision casting all the time. At some point, we got to get something done.
Right.
All right. Third, so we're going to go through these and explain them, and then we're going to show you how we will potentially use these in action. So third is affiliative. This is where you create harmony and build emotional bonds. Affiliative sounds like people come first, which hopefully as an entrepreneur, you are a servant leader and you're serving other people. So, stuff like the customer's always right. Those are affiliative leadership styles. You're trying to get your customers to prioritize the needs of the customers over their own personal needs. Mm-hmm. The goal here is to build empathy, relationship building, and enabling communication. You use this style to heal rifts in your team or to motivate people during stressful circumstances. So when you have a troubled employee, or you got a particular employee who's seeming to always find themselves in the workplace challenge, they just, whatever reason, they lack motivation. They just always seem to be getting these little tiffs and riffs. You would use an affiliative style to kind of help smooth it over. So at the end of the day, we're using these styles not to appease, but we're trying to continue a attitude of motivation. We want people to do their job. We want people to do what you paid them for, but you can't rule with an iron fist like in a commanding style all day long. Okay, we got three more, and then we're going to give you an example. Democratic, y'all understand what this means. Consensus building. The majority rules. This is when you may ask to vote. What do you think? By show of hands, what do y'all think? This creates collaboration, team leadership, and it fosters communication. And the goal here is to build buy-in or consensus to get input from valuable employees. At the end of the day, you want to create an environment where the folks who work for you want to work for you, regardless of whatever your role is, whether you're the entrepreneur, whether you're the front line, whether you're the first line supervisor, whoever supports you, you want them to. So in non-mission critical situations where whatever's decided isn't gonna create any real change in the organization, positive or negative. Like for example, I remember I go to the barbershop sometime, and in the barbershop, depending on who's in the shop that day, they may say, if my barber's not there, they may say, what y'all want to listen to? That's a democratic thing. What do y'all think? What do y'all want to do? You're looking for team input, and whatever the majority say, that's probably the radio station is going on. Everybody ain't gonna be happy, but you're gonna respect it because, hey, most people want to do that. And most of the time, most folks try to go along to get along. It's okay. Pace setting. This is where you set high standards for performance. This may be in a crunch time. You do as I need to do as I do now. This is not the time. So as the entrepreneur, as the manager, people do as we do, not as we say. So this is not the time you tell people, I need you to get cracking, but you sitting on your tail. Right. That is not his work. You're leading by example. You're showing that whatever we got going on, we got a deadline coming in. We need to push, and I need all hands on deck. And so now you do as I do. And so what I'm saying and what I'm doing are consistent. I'm setting the pace. More than likely, I'm trying to change the tempo. We might be behind. A whole lot of people came in the store, and we need to be chop to get the job done, to get this flow down. So you do this for a quick turnaround to get results. It forms a highly motivated and confident team.